How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Yeah, it's been a good day, been a good week at work and at home. How about you?
I'm great. Thank you very much for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm happy to be on the show. Yeah, looks like you have a good a series of uploads of conversations, and I'm happy to be part of it.
So I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing to my audience.
Nice, nice, right on.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Oh sure, sure, sure. Yeah. So my name is Austin Chadwick, and from a kind of tech perspective, I've been a software engineer about 15 years. So 5 of that was from a process standpoint, like very traditional, waterfall, heavy documentation style thing. And then for 5 years, I did kind of from scratch Agile transformation with Scrum, and at the tail end of that, started to learn about some excellent technical practices. And then for the last 4 years or so, been doing full time something called mob programming or ensemble programming. And so that's a little bit about me. I'm a full stack developer, coach, and I really enjoy what I do.
So you are co-host of the Mob Mentality Show.
Yes, yeah, and that's right. So our show is basically all things agile and product development from a mob programming perspective. And so we'll either, we have people on the show from all over the world to share about their experiences with mob programming or to share about anything agile or product development related. And then we'll kind of look at it from a mob programming perspective because the place I currently work is kind of where it was somewhat discovered, as you can say. So so it's been a fun place to be.
So you're a full stack software engineer from last 15 years. So how is this?
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
You're a full senior full stack software engineer. You're into software engineering from last 15 years. So how is this? How is this experience?
Oh yeah, it's been great. I mean, I think it's been fun to experience many different sides of software engineering and product development. So even more from the traditional analyst side to coding to testing to kind of interacting with customers and stakeholders and figuring out how to experiment with the market and tons of different technologies. And so I think I've had a fairly good breadth of experiences, which is pretty fun because in my experience, being on a team where all those skills come together and the skills aren't siloed really benefits the customers a lot.
So what do you like most in your job?
Yeah, so I think what I enjoy most is basically being with people. So mob programming is very social, so it's like pair programming but with more people. And so basically I'm hanging out with friends all day and we're writing code together. And so we'll discuss and run experiments and talk about the results, and everyone's feedback is kind of continuously integrated. And I just kind of really love that team feeling and environment. And it really, so often in software development we'll be like, oh, we're a team, but what teams go work in isolation for most of the game and then come back and resync every once in a while? That's not what most people think of when they think of team sports, right? They're interacting constantly, second to second kind of thing. And so I think having that real team feeling for almost the whole day is really enjoyable for me. Yeah.
So do you remember on which what kind of software development products or software engineering software that you have worked all these years?
Uh, can you repeat the question? I might have missed one part of that sentence. Sorry.
So I'm sure in this 15 years of experience of yours, you might, right? So what kind of products that you have worked, and what you understood by doing engineering work?
Yeah, so I understood you to ask what kind of technologies have I worked with in software and product development. Is that correct?
I'm asking you that I'm sure you might have worked on different kinds of software products,
Yes.
different kinds. So
Yeah.
working on different kinds of software products in this 15 years, and
Yes.
doing engineering work for it. You are constructing, you are creating, and you're developing it. So how is that experience doing work for different products?
Oh, what's the experience we're in? Yeah, it's been quite diverse, so um, yeah, and again, I've been really liking that breadth. So early on, it was kind of some simple applications, but it came to be like software used in nuclear power plant control rooms for logs or rounds or security and that kind of stuff. And so that was pretty interesting. And then interacting with devices and tracking a dose of radiation. So that was pretty fun. And then I also worked with robotics in a sense where is manufacturing line of computer phones and that kind of thing. I worked on the software that controls an arm or multiple arms to help dispense fluid to glue things together and that kind of stuff. And then lastly, been doing cloud IoT for irrigation and lighting primarily, but also working on kind of generic web applications and data and that kind of thing. And what I've noticed through it all is that in my opinion is in my experience is that the basic technical principles hold and the basic kind of agility or interaction with customer principles hold regardless. So regardless of what space you're working in, what technology, what programming language, clean code is clean code, maintainable code is maintainable code, and healthy interactions and healthy delivery practices kind of hold regardless of industry. And I think one thing before I say any more is everything I'm saying here is from a just sharing perspective, because every context is extremely unique in tech. Like every team, every context is very different. And so anything I say is something that's maybe worked for me and maybe someone can experiment with, but it's not a recommendation or guarantee that I'll work in your environment. But in my experience, those things have held true regardless of technology or product and that kind of thing.
So what challenges that you faced as a software engineer?
What challenges? Yeah. So I think, I'll answer from two fronts. So one is from a technology front, and then also from a kind of feature discovery, work breakdown front. And so from the technology front, I love the challenge of making code maintainable. So whether it's new code or ancient code, making it so that it can be easily tested, and so you can get fast feedback from automated tests, unit tests, and that kind of thing, and refactoring it so it's easy to read. And I just love those kind of challenges with either a new technology stack or looking at ancient code from 20 years ago, how to make it testable and maintainable. And so, I love that challenge. And then another challenge that I enjoy working through is anytime a customer or stakeholder asks, or we're working together and it seems like the thing to do to help solve a problem for a customer is a gigantic thing, right? And so if we work on it as a gigantic thing, we won't deliver it for a really, really long time and not get feedback. So the whole puzzle of taking a big thing and finding the most valuable piece of it and figuring out how to deliver it in thin vertical slices to get feedback faster, as opposed to a gigantic, huge thing that's a big risk. Those are kind of two challenges that come across pretty often.
So Software engineering. So, what is this?
Software engineering. Oh, okay. Yeah. So software engineering is basically the discipline for making, I guess, from a very non-tech speak perspective, basically anything that a person sees on a computer device, tablet, or phone of any kind that has a screen and is electronic. There's some sort of software or firmware involved in that. And yeah, so the practice of software engineering is, the design, creation, maintenance, delivery, etc. Of the code that makes that work.
So, I'm sure uh, 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 being in this position, you might have or you will be observing different softwares and the engineering of different softwares. You do research.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've done research on different styles of software engineering, and I've done some formal training on it, whether through Education University or certification a while back, American Society of Quality, and then also just talking to people. So at conferences or on our show or podcast, just asking people's experiences about how they do it and what works and doesn't work. And so, yeah, I do quite enjoy uh, researching and learning about different ways of software engineering.
So, what is your way of looking at a software and its engineering? How you look at it?
How do I look at it? So I think I typically try to take it on from a systems thinking or lean perspective, which is, um, you know, uh, what's the, if you not just looking at like, oh, what code or what technology or this or that, like all those things are important, but the most important thing is, hey, how do we provide value to a customer, right? And how do we provide value to the world, right? So what, and and so looking at it from the whole system, and trying to optimize that, as opposed to just optimizing pieces of it, for example. Um, and one thing that is very counterintuitive often, which kind of comes from a lean mindset, is that people being busy and working individually apart from each other is often how people think high productivity works. Um, but often what is not looked at is a lot of waste that get introduced when people work independently from each other. Is that I recently heard it on LinkedIn. Every time you do asynchronous work, you have to resync, right? And so you have to wait for someone else to finish and then sync your work, or there's a queue, or there's a handoff, and then there's a context switch, and so there's a lot of wastes that happen with software engineering that are not hard to see because it's more abstract and intellectual. But if you were to actually watch it, if it were like a physical thing moving around on a production floor, you would see that working apart from each other individually leads to a lot of waste. So from a resource perspective, like, hey, I'm really busy, is what most people think of with productivity. But from the whole system, I mean, me generating 100 things that no one else needs when we only needed 2, because that's my specialty, and I only do front end, and I generate a bunch of front end code, and it may not even be needed, or I may be generating a bunch of things queuing up in other people's work to wait for mine, and then I'm waiting for them, and so looking at it from a whole system helps a lot, because you can run experiments with different ways to work to optimize what's flow efficiency, which is what brings value to the user the fastest. Yeah.
So, in this process, you will be attending to conferences, and also you'll be talking with your clients about the product development and and then the requirements, what they need. So, by talking with people, you will be collecting the information and you're putting in your mind, and you will be creating something from nothing in your computer. So like that is something you're talking with human beings, and you're extracting information from them, and you're creating something that is useful for their business. So how this you are able to do this in 15 years?
Yeah. It's funny. Early in the career, it was done very waterfall. So it's like you would, let's say they wanted 100 features or 100 things, right? We would write documents for all 100 things. What's the specifications? What's the design for all 100 things? And then the code would be written for all 100 things, and then testing would be done on all 100 things, and integration with the 1,000 features that were written before, and make sure nothing broke. And so after a really long period of time, the customer would get something they could try and use. And so what I've learned over those 15 years is that way has a lot of waste, because often a lot of those features in the 100 things, a lot of them weren't even used, and a lot of mistakes happen because you're making something the best you can think of, but you're not really testing it with the person who needs it until it's a giant thing at the end. And so what's been excellent about the way we're currently working is that everything's really small, and it's really easy to understand things when they're small. It's easy to test them when they're small. It's easy to deliver them when they're small. So the loop, daily loop, typically looks something like we talk with a customer or stakeholder about what they want to do next, and if it's something big, we'll break it down and figure out the next piece to work on from that huge thing. And then what we do is we try to deliver a piece of that in an environment. If it's not production, ideally production, with like a feature flag to turn it on and off or something. But even if it's not production, in a place where a customer stakeholder can try it and give us feedback. And so that way, that loop, for one, you're delivering value much sooner to a person. And then two, if anything's off, they can correct it. And it's what you did yesterday. There's not a lot to remember what you did yesterday. So you can correct that and change that and make that better. And that loop tends to build a lot higher levels of trust, because there's no need for all this documentation and all this mechanics. It's just like, oh, you asked for that. We built a piece of that. How does that work? Oh, that's good. And then so they see that daily, or very often they're getting value. And when they give feedback, things get changed to meet their needs. Trust grows, and also the value grows for the output of the system. And there's a lot less waste of things they thought they needed, but they really didn't. So it's a saying in software engineering that customers don't know what they need until they see it, basically. And so, yeah.
So you spent in software engineering. So how you managed your time?
How do I manage my time? Yeah, so for a typical day, looks like for my current environment is we have 1 hour of learning per day. And so that could be spent, watching videos, running experiments on the side to try to learn something for yourself with a new technology, new this or that. And yeah, we learn as a group. We'll get together and learn things together. And then it's 7 hours working with the mob or the team, where we'll work on whatever product is highest priority for our customers. And we'll work on that together. And it's mostly this flow of switching off who's at the keyboard and who's navigating and saying the ideas out loud. And then someone else is putting the keyboard. And then there's just kind of a general group discussion, because we're all working on essentially one computer. And then, yes, that takes up most of the day. And then on Friday, we have 3 hours of learning and 5 hours of production work, so to speak.
So after completion of a project, you'll be shifting to you'll be shifting your mind to another project, so which will be completely different. So how you are able to adopt and convert yourself to other person?
Yeah. And so yeah, back early in my career, the way that would happen is you would sit down by yourself, read lots of documentation. Maybe you'd have to go interrupt and bother somebody and ask questions and that kind of thing. And so the way it is now, because I've switched teams and products 4 or 5 times in the last 4 or 5 years. So about every year and a half or so, I switch teams and products. And what I love about the mob programming style is you just join the team and you're kind of already in the flow of the discussion and the work. And you just ask questions as you're working and they'll answer them as you go. And you'll also learn by osmosis. So I remember the first mob programming team I joined was in a language, JavaScript, that I did not know very well at all. And so when I was part of the discussion, I could participate because the ideas of solving the problem you can contribute to whether you know the particular programming language or not. And then it was my turn to be at the keyboard. They would tell me exactly what to type. So just by the process of being in the mob, I learned programming language, the domain about who the customers are, what problems we're solving. I learned the technologies. I learned the cloud technologies. And so in my experience, it was a very rapid way to onboard and a very enjoyable one at that too.
So, working on different products, working with different clients. So, what do you understand about what is it?
You cut out for a little bit. Do you mind saying that one more time? I'm sorry.
You worked on different software products and you worked with different clients and you worked on different technologies. So, what stood about software development and what is it?
So how do I explain what software development is to clients and customers? Is that what you said?
What is software product development? What you understood?
What do I understand to be software product development? Yeah, it's based. Yeah, was that the question?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so I think it's basically the same thing as I said for software engineering before, at least my understanding. I'm not reading from a textbook or anything right now, but it's basically the design, testing, development, delivery of product to a customer to provide value, to do something good in the world. And yeah, so I think it's just that, that process to develop, to discover. And it's often a discovery process because often we don't know until we get there, kind of thing, until we try stuff. And so often in a traditional perspective, it was like, oh, I know what the person wants and I'm going to, deliver it to them. Where often we have a hypothesis about what we think they want. How can we run an experiment to find out, right? So it's kind of like every feature is almost a startup, so to speak. How can we test the market to make sure that they really want this thing? And so it's often constructing experiments where you deliver things, or there are other ways from the usability perspective to test without delivering, but often a good way is to deliver a small thing and see how the market responds in real life, in the real world, in production.
So 15 years back, you saw how the software engineering was happening and being done, and now you're seeing. So in this evolution, so how the software is being done?
Yeah. So how has it changed? I think I don't have a great grasp on the whole world, the whole market. What I do know from my experiences is that there seems to be more and more experimentation with quote unquote new things, even though they've been out for a while. New things like agility and lean, but they often get misunderstood. And so what I often see is that agility, lean, mob programming, and those kind of things, there is a small group who is getting a lot of benefit and a lot of value from certain practices or ways of thinking or ways of experimenting and learning. And there's a lot of people just claiming the name and saying, oh yeah, we're Agile, or oh yeah, we do mob programming, or yeah, we're this or we're that, or we're DevOps. And then they basically just keep doing the things the way they were before, but they just rebrand it and slightly adjust it and rename certain meetings to this kind of thing. And so there is a lot of posturing of change in some cases, and not much real change. And then in some cases, is real change and real innovation and real growth. And that is very fun and exciting to see. And I think I've been a part of a few of those actual changes. And I've also been part of changes that weren't real. So, yeah.
So it is you as a software engineer working on a particular product that you cannot forget any memory.
Can you repeat that one more time? I'm sorry.
Any particular experience you as software engineer in your life? Do you have any particular experience that you cannot forget any memory working on a
Yeah, an unforgettable
project?
experience. Yeah, I mean, I think, maybe two come to mind, which is when I first learned the technical practices of test-driven development and refactoring and evolutionary design. And it was just incredible experience to see all the problems I've experienced up to that point and how it solved so many of those problems for me. One problem was you would deliver and deliver and deliver, and the more you delivered, the harder the code was to work with, and the more bugs it has, and the more complicated it was, and it just became, the first year you might be, super successful, super excited, everybody loves you, and then year 2 and 3, everybody's upset with you because the software is so buggy, and every feature you add is incredibly resistant to add a new feature because the existing code is so difficult to work with. And so I've lived that, and then also applying some of these new ways of thinking and maintaining and adding features to software was really exciting for me to have those problems largely solved. And so it just made software development such a much more enjoyable experience, much more satisfying, easier to go home at night, easier to not work overtime because every piece you do is added reliably and safely, and there's not much to worry about, so to speak. And so that was one eye-opening experience, and a shout out to David Bernstein, who was a trainer at the place I was working at the time, who really helped me see that. And then the second, from more of a people side, was the experience of mob programming for the first time, where it took like a very enjoyable discussion you have with friends, but also problem solving, and made that my everyday work life. And so, but I think my first experiences with mobbing was almost like being at a conference every day, because I was learning so much, but also enjoying it so much. So I think those are two for me.
So the software that you have worked on, so how those softwares are helping human beings, how it is solving their problems?
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, so for my first job, it was related to nuclear power. So basically providing energy for a whole region or for the grid on, basically anything electronic. So it's basically a medium. It could be, electricity can be used for good or bad, but it was a medium for lots of utility, right? We use it for many good things. And then similarly, in my second job, it was helping with the manufacturing of phones and devices and things like that. And so, similar in the respect that it's something that can be used for great good. So I think there's so many amazing things you can do with technology. And in my current role, it has to do with irrigation and lighting. And so I think one way is it helps. In all the roles, I think it helps humans in the sense of automating something monotonous, right? So I think, for example, people going around to every, sprinkler control box and turning valves on and off. And if someone's doing that for many facilities in a large region, that's a lot of driving around. It's a lot of gas. It's a lot of things. Where when they can control that over the cloud, it saves them time they can achieve that much more quickly from a device, and it saves them time to invest in something that's more important than manually walking around, driving and turning things on and off and scheduling things that way. It can help reduce the use of too much water, because we can adjust irrigation by schedule and those kind of things. And it can also be fun. So some of the lighting systems are for fun, right? It's a holiday. You want to turn on a particular light theme at your house, and that's fun and enjoyable for a family. And so, yeah, those are some of the ways I see it to help people. It looks like you're muted, or I can't hear you anymore. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So your favorite, like, are working on all these projects, or you will be using different kind of tools and different kind of technologies. So also you spend at least 1 hour a day to learn something new.
Yes.
So how you will learn different technologies and in order to do different
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah. So my learning time consists of watching videos. So, Pluralsight or is one I watch for any like go-to for technology, whether it's, Angular or .NET or MVC or AWS or cloud. So part of my time is watching those videos, and I'll often exercise while I'm watching those videos. I love audiobooks, not only for work-related things, but for life-related things as well, because you can do them while you're driving, you can do them while you're alone, working in the yard or getting ready in the morning. And so I'll listen to many business and tech-related audiobooks. It's also a personal hobby of mine is theology and philosophy, and I'm in some outside work book clubs on that kind of thing. And so I'll listen to those. We'll do just basic experimentation, like what's great just to learn by doing. So it's like, oh, I've heard of technique A, or I've heard of tool B, and then I'll just spin up, some tech and start experimenting with that and seeing how it works. And then once I get an idea, I'll pull in one of our products and start experimenting with that to see how the tool can help with it. And another thing we do quite often is we'll learn together. So on Fridays, we've been doing what's called an internal open space, where it takes the format of an open space conference, where instead of it having like a predefined agenda, the first 15 minutes is spent people in the group saying, hey, I want to go learn about topic B, and I'm going to be in this virtual room over here learning about it if anybody wants to join me. And then people will present their different topics and where they're going to be at what times. And then people just come in and join them. And so often it'll turn into a mob programming session or a group discussion, lean coffee style with stickies. Sometimes it turns into a retrospective format. I found that very effective way to learn from others and learn what they're learning, basically. So they'll share what they've been learning.
So you saw the technology evolution from all these years. So how software engineering is going to be in future?
How's it going to be in the future? So I'll put on my propeller hat now and do lots of guessing, wild guessing, because it's very hard to know. So there's a pessimistic prediction and then an optimistic one. So I guess I can start with the optimistic one in that I think it would be if the world keeps optimizing and innovating and growing in a good direction, I suspect there'll be a few things. One, there'll be more and more automation. And so technology will become less low-level coding and more high-level. But there'll still be a need for group humans to think through it and check each other. And so as opposed to us typing code for a while to complete a feature, we might be like, hey, let me ask the computer to make feature XYZ using technologies, 1, 2, and 3, and for it to look like this template, and then it would auto-generate something like that. And we would still be working as a group because from a lean perspective, from a flow efficiency perspective, it still makes to have that human interaction and feedback on each other on what we're making. And so I think there'll just be higher levels of automation, and then higher levels of quality with that kind of continuous synchronous feedback from person to person and to the technology and back. And so I think it would be more like that if it goes down a better path. But I have deep respect for people who want to work alone, and I would never force that on anybody. And so I think it would be fantastic if technology and software engineering and product development respected people's autonomy to work the way and what works best for them. And so that would be a chief thing. I would love to see it go that direction. It may not, but there's one optimistic prediction for you.
So, have you understood the business side of the technology?
Yes. And that, for me, it's two sides of the same coin. So I think it's good to be a generalist to understand both sides, because both are important, and the interplay and the interaction between both things are needed to really come up with a good product experiment for a customer. And so I love whether mob programming or other collaboration styles where those two mindsets are continuously talking and learning from each other. And so, for an example story is someone very familiar in the irrigation domain comes and says, hey, I've been noticing this problem with people, in irrigation at this type of facility. And here's my vision to solve that problem. And then we give them feedback on that. But he's like, I have no idea on the technology. So we lay out some technology options, and he's teaching us about the business and the domain as we're laying out those technology options. Because we need to know that to pick technology that can meet that. And also meet that for a quote unquote bargain, right? So if there's 5 different ways to make that vision a reality, you want to pick the one that's simpler and has the least amount of parts to make it take much longer or introduce more risk. And so, so I think in the while you are mob programming or ensemble programming, and you're often interacting with people or customers who are very knowledgeable in the business, you naturally learn about it as you go. Yeah.
So you are US citizen, right?
Our products are used internationally, but yes, most of the customers I personally have interacted with are US based.
So the team or the clients that you work with are from the same country or from different countries?
The clients, so clients are international, and it depends. So there are some on our team, maybe not people we work with daily, who are from those regions and have a better understanding of that client's culture, region, etc.
So you worked as a senior. You're working as a senior full stack software engineer and agile technical coach at Hunter Industries, and you're working in this position for 3 years, 9 months. So what you learned?
Yeah. So I think the primary thing I've learned is that things work best when everyone who is needed to get the job done is there, right? So in sync, in person. I think that might be stating it too succinctly, but I think that's the primary thing I've learned.
Awesome. And also, before this, you worked as software engineer, Scrum Master, and Agile coach at Nordson Tech for 5 years, 9 months. So
Yep.
how was?
Yeah, I think the big thing I learned there was kind of the importance of technical excellence. I think was maybe one of my biggest takeaways from working there. Saw the I think that was where I really learned that. Yep.
Great. And before that, you worked as software engineer, Southern California Edison, full time for 5 years, 6 months. So how was that?
It was great. Yeah, I think that was my entry into the software engineering world, and I'm trying to think the primary thing I learned there is it kind of goes along with the book Joy Inc. and that people in software engineering get joy from giving joy to other people in what they make. And so the more the software engineering process or way of working that enables you to deliver something and see someone's response to it and give you feedback on that value is really key and important thing.
So, and as a host at the Mob Mentality Show, what you do?
What do I do as a co-host in that show? So basically, I'm involved in, since it's a very small shop, so to speak, me and the co-host do all the things, whether from setting up the recordings, recruiting guests, and running social media, publishing podcasts, publishing episodes. And then during the recording, we take turns on who does the introduction, who closes out the episode. And then during the conversation, we both ask questions and learn from each guest. And then some episodes, we just share stories from our own personal experiences. And so those are some of the things I've done. We have written some code to automate some of those processes, and that's been fun as well.
So how you are able to manage it, because you are already doing a full-time work, and how you are doing that?
Yeah. So I'm a pretty early riser. So so when I get up in the morning, I have some time before my wife and kids wake up, and so I will work on my master's degree, which I'm working on, which is completely unrelated to tech, or I'll work on anything needed for the show. And so that's typically been enough. And our goal on the outset of the Mom Mentality Show was to make it very sustainable and simple. So we record once a week at the same time slot, and for the most part, and then there's basically a pipeline that takes each recording and turns it into everything else. And so we try to deliver once per week, and every week of the year it's pretty similar as far as the process goes, but the content's very different depending on the guest and the topic. And so I really like that we did it with sustainability in mind, as opposed to something that was very expensive or took tons of hours and time every week to get done. So.
So at last, what do you say to the software engineers who are into entry level, who are into intermediate level, and who are experts, who are already in the industry for a long time, like you? So what do you say to those people who are watching this and listening to you from this conversation from anywhere on this planet?
Nice. Yeah. If I were to say one thing is, I guess, seek to be vulnerable with what you know and don't know, with those who you work with, and don't give up your autonomy to make things better. So you can always, no matter where you're at, in small ways or big, run an experiment, see how it went, inspect and adapt and change things, and so so I guess it would just be an encouragement to keep that loop going, to always be learning, to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And I think that might be one thing I would share as a potential experiment.
Sure. So at last, what do you say about my questioning in this conversation?
What did I say about what?
My questions in this conversation.
Your impressions? I've seen some smiles, which is fun, and yeah, you've asked some great questions, and yeah, I've really appreciated the time.
So, and as a person who is into technology for 15 plus years, and also into software engineering. So I did masters in software engineering, and I did bachelor's in computer science and engineering. So I'm taking these interviews with people like you who are already in the industry, trying to know how things are working. I'm trying to,
Nice.
and also I'm trying to tell to my audience. I have few audience. I want to tell that so that I can grow and they can grow. So how this work is going to helpful for me if I work in IT in coming days? And also, have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube? How is it?
Can you ask the question one more time? I'm sorry.
So how these interviews that I'm doing are going to be helpful for me if I work in IT in coming days?
Yeah. So yeah. So I'll have to watch them and give you some feedback yet. I haven't watched any yet, so I'm sorry. But yeah, I'll definitely watch one and give you some feedback soon. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Thanks, Austin. Do you want me to share any web links of yours to my audience?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I'll follow up over the DM to give you some basic links. Yeah.
So to my podcast people, can you say how they can follow you or can see the work that you're doing?
Absolutely. So yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn under Austin Chadwick, and on Twitter at mob__mentality. And those are good places in social media to reach out. And yeah, I think that about does it.
So can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Absolutely.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Absolutely, yeah.
Thanks, Austin, for your valuable time and keep going, keep solving more problems.
All right, right back at you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, have a good one.